So we have every Saturday night, we have the Avos Ubanim, we have parent-child learning. It's a very serious, beautiful thing. It's exciting. And so we decided, sort of like on a whim, one of the guys came up with an idea that, there are families that are displaced. And I'm sure that in the towns that they come from, in Netivot and in Beersheva and, all the towns south where they're not living. And I can't tell you how many people, and this is just in Beit Shemesh, forget about in Yerushalayim and in other places. I can't tell you how many of these families are here. And so we decided, there's an organization that's involved with their food and getting them basic needs and all that kind of stuff and apartments. So we decided to advertise through them, and we opened up and said, if any parents want to come with their kids, I'm sure in their communities they have it every Motzei Shabbos, and it's an important, in the wintertime, it's like a really, really, really big deal here. So we opened it up. I can't tell you how many families we had. It was unbelievable. And all of a sudden, the time hit, and all my guys came on time, and then, one by one, the guests started dribbling in, and after a couple of minutes, you realized, there's over 100 people in this room.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. It was like, I can't tell you. And we sang and we danced, and it was two cultures. Like my chevra is American Israelis, and these are Israelis. There were no English being spoken there, right? This was purely in Hebrew, and I had to do my stuff in Hebrew. It was just, it was like an unbelievable. The whole thing was an hour, but it was unbelievable, and the appreciation that came from these families of just, thank you, giving us a couple of normal minutes in our lives, just bring a little routine to us and something a little normal, and they were all blown away by the amount of chesed they've been receiving, and the amount of stuff that their needs are really taken care of. It's like incredible. And so whatever. So when you see something like that, it's beautiful and it's uplifting, but it's also a reminder that the only reason that we have to do things like this is because we're in a war. And then unfortunately, there's all the funerals every day you open up. Unfortunately, you have to read about the soldiers who've given their lives al Kiddush Hashem. And it's like yeah, it's difficult because you have young kids, which is very, very difficult. 21-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and then you have people that are on miluim, that are on reserve duty. So you've got 45-year-olds with 6 kids, and it's just that wherever you turn, so you don't necessarily know a lot of them. So when you don't know them, it's a pain on a certain level. But then when you know them, then it's a whole other thing. Unfortunately, there was this past Shabbos, my daughter-in-law's first cousin was killed, and so we had the funeral was on. I can't remember now. I think the funeral was on Monday, and it was just the whole thing is heartbreaking, and you just realize, you don't feel like what's this for? Like it's a waste, but you just look at it and you just say, how terrible. And it's it's something that every member of Klal Yisrael has to feel that there's a lot of reaction out there, and again, this is stuff that we speak about every week, but there's a lot of stuff out there that borders on the dangerous. And what I mean by the dangerous is when you start hearing people talk about how powerful we are, how mighty the Israeli army is, we're going to beat the stuffings out of those guys. We're going to wipe them out because we're the best moral army. We're the best. Stop that. This is so abnormal. What's going on is so abnormal and so out of the regular. you have to be blind if you can't open your eyes and see that this is the Yad Hashem. When we say that this is the hand of God, it doesn't mean, God is blessing us. There's something wrong, or there's something that God wants us to go through to experience this pain. But this is not divorced and disconnected from God. It's not about our might, and it's not about our power. Do we have an incredible army? No question about it. But the reason we have an incredible army is because we have an incredible God. And that if it wasn't for our incredible God, so then our incredible army would be able to do absolutely nothing. It would be powerless. And in all the talk and the rhetoric and all of the lines that we use, never again, and all of those, we have to remember that ultimately it's all about God. And therefore, when we're looking for stuff to do, I totally agree. I mean, not agree, but it's necessary. Jews have to reach out to Jews. I mean, we got to collect the money, and we have to and we have to support them, and we have to do all the things that we do. But we cannot forget to pray. We cannot forget to daven to Hashem and to ask Him to ask Him as a Jewish people for help, to ask Him for protection, and to make sure that we lift ourselves up a little bit, that we change ourselves a little bit, because it's a call from a father to his children. Come back to me. And you can't divorce that. You can't get rid of that stuff. As I've mentioned every week, you look around and you listen to some of the things on the other side, which are really so magnificent. You hear about people. I heard a story yesterday that knocked my socks off. Let me preface this story just by telling you. I hope nobody minds that I'm not in the mission yet, but I'll tell you an incredible story. But you have to know like this: whenever you tell stories of miracles where somebody's life was saved, and you remember that, okay, one life was saved, but thousands were taken. There's no question about it. Remember, God's running this, which means that yes, there are people that are going to die, and yes, there are people that are going to live, and it's not miraculous when a person lives. It's not a punishment when a person dies, and it's not a just coincidence when a person lives. When a person lives, there's a reason why Kodesh Baruch Hu didn't take that person. So listen to this incredible story. A year ago, guy was driving on the highway, and he was driving down south, and he sees a fellow stopped on the side of the road. So he pulls over, and the guy says he's out of gas. So this guy, a Charedi guy from Bnei Brak, says to him, "No problem. So I'll go. There's a gas station not far from here. We'll go. I'll get you gas. I'll come back. I'll give you the gas." So he goes. He gets a jerry can, fills it with gas, comes back, gives the guy the gas. This guy says to him, "How much do I owe you?" He says, "What do you mean, how much do you owe you? What, are you going to steal my mitzvah? You don't owe me anything." So the guy says, "What?" He says, there's a true story, by the way. He says to him, "But you're a Charedi," as if, you've got to be the thief that I thought you've been all my life. Like, what are you talking about? I'm sure you'll charge me 10 times what the gas cost. Like, the guy was incredulous that this guy would help him like that. And he said, "Under no circumstances, I won't take anything from you." The guy has on his car a bumper sticker that's a put down to Charedim. It's right there. So the two of them are having this conversation. If you can take a picture, they're having this conversation of the Charedi guy doing an incredible chesed for this guy with a sign that says, "Down with Charedim." So the guy says, "Maybe I was wrong." And he pulls off his sticker from the back of his car. Okay, good. Next week, Erev Shabbos, the Charedi guy calls this guy up, and he says, "I just wanted to wish you a Shabbat Shalom." And every single week, he calls him, tells him a little story, tells him a little thought on the parasha, and just says Shabbat Shalom. This guy was from Kibbutz Be'eri. Now, Kibbutz Be'eri, what I think a lot of people don't know, is a very leftist place, and was very, very, very not religious. When I say very not religious, like, sort of an anti-religious kind of thing, which doesn't matter. It's just good to know the facts. That's all. So anyway, this guy was from Kibbutz Be'eri, and this is going on every single Shabbos. So and they're schmoozing and they're talking and they're becoming friends. So finally, he says to the guy, "Why don't you come and spend Shabbat with me? Come to Bnei Brak. Come, you'll bring your wife. We'll spend Shabbos together. It'll be a beautiful thing." Guy says, "Okay, it sounds like a great idea." So he says, "When do you want to come?" So this Shabbos is not going to work. Next Shabbos is not going to work. And they're going through all the Shabbos. Finally, they get to, you know what? It was right before Rosh Hashanah. So he said, that Shabbos is not good. And then the Shabbos in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that's like, for somebody who's not religious, that's like Tisha B'Av. That's not the right way to introduce them into the Jewish community. So no, I don't think that Shabbos is going to work. The Shabbos after was Sukkot. And he said, oh, wait a second. How about Simchas? So he went to his Rebbe. This guy went to his Rebbe. He said to his Rebbe, "What do I do?" So the Rebbe said, "Invite him for Simchas Torah." So he said, I don't think I can invite him for Simchas Torah because my father, who lives in Sderot, is not feeling so well. And I think I need to go to Sderot to be with him for Simchas Torah. Now, we all know the tragedy that happened in Sderot and Kibbutz Be'eri. So the guy, the Rav said to this fellow, "You know what? Why don't you, it's perfect. He said, why don't you invite your father to be with you for Yontif so that this guy could see an act of Kibbud Av V'Ein. He could see you honoring your father. It'll be inspirational for him." So the guy convinced his father to come for Shabbos. He invites this fellow from Kibbutz Be'eri, and the guy said, "Okay." And here's the father from Sderot and this couple from Kibbutz Be'eri, neither of whom were in their house on Simchas Torah morning, and both of whom were saved from the tragedy. I went bananas when I heard the story. An act of chesed, and there are so many stories like this of people who are who are coming to epiphanies and realizations that that there is a God and there is a Judaism, and I don't know on what level that means. I've told you before, I don't know what that means. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know where it's going to stay, but there is a wake up. There is a sense of God that is creeping into life here, which is just an incredible thing. And I think that in all of our lives, that has to happen. That there has to be a reawakening of our awareness of God and God's involvement in the life of the Jewish people, and that this isn't just some little thing going on, geopolitical machinations of a couple of countries brandishing their swords. That's not what's going on here. What's going on is that things are moving. I don't know how far we are. I don't know where we are in the process, but things are moving. Things are moving. There is a Mashiach. There is a thing called the Geula Shlema. There's a thing called a final redemption. Things are moving. Is it happening tomorrow? It's not happening tomorrow. I have no idea when it's happening, but I just know that things are moving, and we have to be aware of that. And this is all ultimately coming from the Master of the universe. Yeah. Maybe that's part of the heaviness that people here are walking around with, because the realization this is not a game. It's not a game. This is real. It's real life. Yeah. Okay. So there was something I wanted to talk about last week, and I, of course, ran out of time, and looks like I'm going to do the same thing this week. I apologize. But no, I should be able to get through it. The last of the 48 ways is Ha'omer Davar B'Shem Omer, somebody who says something over in the name of the person that they heard it from. So somebody who is capable of quoting and of being able to say, I heard this from this rabbi, I heard this from that rabbi, and that person taught me this, and is not afraid at all to be able to say things, to be able to say things over. The truth is, actually, there's two things that I want to say. I might not get to the second one. We learned in Mishnah. I don't think I said this last week. We learned in Mishnah that said, Ezu Chacham, who is a wise person? Did I say this over last week?
No.
Okay. So you remember the Mishnah? Yeah. So
that's good.
Who is a wise person? Halo made me call Adam, somebody who learns from every person. And we spent a lot of time on that because that's a very important concept. Somebody who's open to be able to learn from everybody, who's able to everything is a lesson. Everything is taught to him. Right? He's getting from everything that's happening. He's getting a profound lesson, which is an incredible way to live life. By the way, that when you hear these stories, like they touch you very, very deeply because you're learning. You're mamish learning. You're looking at everything that's happening around you, and you're not just living through things. You're experiencing them. You're learning from them. You're growing from them. It's an incredible way to live. But there's only one small problem. There's another Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says, Aseh l'cha rav, that you have to make for yourself a teacher. So it doesn't mean to learn from every person. Aseh l'cha rav means you better have a Rebbe. You've got to have a guide. You've got to have somebody who can unpack the things that you're seeing. Can you imagine, and I know that everybody here has tried it, I know everybody's tried it at some point in their lives, to go to a museum without the little ear things or without some docent to walk you around. Because everybody thinks that they're a chacham enough to be able to know exactly what's going on. They go through the museum and it's amazing. They stop, a couple of times, they read like things and they really feel good about it. I'm reading all the signs and I'm reading all the things and I'm really getting it. And then somebody says to them, I went to that museum and you're not going to believe what I saw. And they tell them over something. I said, where was it? I didn't see that. Because you miss things. We don't know everything. We don't even know what's significant and what's not significant. How many times in your life did somebody say somebody experienced the same thing you experienced and said, wasn't that incredible? And then explain to you why it was incredible. And you're thinking, were we at the same party? Were we in the same shul? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't see that because I wasn't sensitive to it and I missed that. We need somebody to unpack these things. We need somebody to be our guide, to point that out. But if that's the case, then it sounds like there's a contradiction in the Mishnahs. It sounds like one Mishnah is saying you don't need a guide. All you need is you need to be able to be open to learning from everybody around you. But the other Mishnah says, no, you need a guide. You need to have somebody who is able to teach you things. You need to have a Rebbe, a teacher. So I was thinking, you need to have a teacher. That's the way Judaism is set up. It's called Misora, tradition. Tradition is one generation passes it on to the next generation. That's the whole structure. Remember the beginning of Pirkei Avos? Moshe Kibel Tora Sinai. Moshe received the Torah from Sinai and gave it to Joshua. Then Joshua passed it on to the elders. This concept of Masorah, this concept of passing things on, that is a basic structure of Judaism. You can't have Judaism if you don't have that tradition. You don't have that passage. But once you have a Rebbe to open your eyes and to teach you how to see and to teach you how to process, so now you have to take that and now lo meid mikol adam, and now go and learn from everybody. If I were to send you out into the street and just say to you, go learn from everybody, you would be an eclectic human being. You'd be one day you'd be this way, the next day you'd be that way. You would be a cholent and just grabbing things. Where'd you get that from? Oh, I used to hang around with those kind of people. And where'd you get that from? You used to hang around with those kind of people, and you have no definition because you're learning from everything and you have no context in which to process it. You have to be taught first. We have to be taught first of what are the important things in life, what are the values. I'll give you like a simple mashal. Let's say your favorite color is red. You walk into a room and you will see all the red things in that room. But if the color on your mind is yellow, then that room will look very different to you because you're going to see the yellows and everything that ties into those yellows. If you have a vision of what the value and purpose of life is in a certain way, so then everything that happens is going to be colored by that. Imagine if in your life, God and his involvement in your life is critical. And it's central. Your whole life is based around that. Well, then whenever you hear a story, what you hear is you hear God. But if what's important in your life is material acquisitions, right? People making money, people spending money, people becoming successful, and that's a value in your life, then that's what you're going to hear. That's what you're going to see, and that's the way you're going to process the world. That's why you need to have an Aseilecha Rav. You need to have a Rebbe. You need to have somebody to guide you and to tell you, these are the values. These are the most important things in life. Once you have that, good. Now you can go and Lomi Mikol Adam. Now you can go and learn from every person. A person who is an Omer Davar B'Shem Omro, who's able to say things over from people, they're saying them over from people because that's what they're learning from. But they're learning the right things from them. They're learning the important things from them because they've already been taught in the other 47 ways. They've been taught what's valuable, what's real in life. Now go and learn and teach from other people. Now go and take all that and now bring that out into the world. Okay, that was another thing that I saw here. But I'll tell you what the main thing is that I see. Homer Davar B'Shem Omer means that when I want to tell you over something, I want to make sure that you understand that this is from a long line of sources. This isn't just something that came from my own belly. It's not something that came from my own mind. And through that, I want you to understand what's really valuable and important. By showing respect for Chachmas HaTorah, for the wisdom of Torah, by respecting the person who said it, it shows a tremendous appreciation for the words of Torah that were taught. And by doing so, we connect the Torah to a living and thriving legacy of all the Chachamim who spent their lives being Marbe Kavod Torah, spreading the honor of Torah. And when I say over something in the name of a person that I heard it from, so then I'm giving honor to that person also, and ultimately giving honor to the Torah. But I want to explain why that's critical. Remember in last week's Pasha, 2 weeks ago's Pasha, Avram was sitting in front of his tent. Remember, he just had a bris milah, 99 years old, had a bris milah. I cannot imagine the pain that he was in. That was not a good day for Avram Avinu. He was sitting there, and the sun, God takes the sun, makes it as hot as could be, because Avram Avinu had chesed ADD, right? He couldn't be held down. He was always looking for things to do, to ways to help people. So God, he didn't know how do you tie the guy down to his seat? So he made it incredibly hot. And theoretically, there should be nobody out there. Then Avram is sitting and he looks out. And by the way, who came to visit Avram in his hospital bed? Not some 18-year-old, little a pinstriper, right? Who came? A candy striper. God himself. God Elaine. Imagine that. Excuse me, Avram, but God came to visit you. I was like, it's nuts. God came to visit him. So God is sitting and schmoozing with Avram. Avram looks out and he sees 3 travelers. And in the most incredible story in the Torah, the most incredible story in the Torah, he turns to God and he says, I'll be back. He says to God, hang out, dude. I got to go take care of those 3 guys. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. But you just hang out here and I'm going to get those guys. Can you imagine if your friend came and you turned to your friend and you said to your friend, wow, thank you for coming. But you know what? I got something else I got to do. Just sit here and wait. I'll be back. What kind of chutzpah is that? Somebody took their day and came to visit you in the hospital, and you're going to say, I got to go do something else. And you're not talking about a friend. We're talking about saying that to God. And you know what the Talmud's reaction to that is? Talmud's reaction to that is, Omer Rav Yehuda, Omer Rav, Gedola hachnasasorchem yosem mekabos pnei shchina. Greeting guests and bringing them into your home is greater than Kabbalah's pnei shchina. It's greater than greeting the divine presence. Was God mad? Not only wasn't God mad, God said, go for it. Absolutely. Because that's bigger than standing with me. I'm not seeing enough, quizzical looks on the faces. Guys, I don't care what Chazal say. How is it possible that greeting another person is greater? It's as good as, it's sort of like I could get. But greater than greeting the divine presence? What in the world does that mean? Guys, what's the whole purpose of mitzvos? Is to feel connected to God. Well, guess what? You're connected to God. He's right there in your room with you. You can't get more connected than that. What mitzvah could bring a greater connectivity than sitting with God when he's visiting the sick? You understand? What's the reason that we keep Shabbos? Because we're keeping God Shabbos. We're feeling God. Well, if you're feeling God, your mama's right there with him. Then what do you need the Shabbos for? You're there with God. He's visiting you. So how could you possibly tell me that greeting the guests is greater than the mitzvah of than greeting God? It's an incredible thing. The Rambam, when he talks about the mitzvah of visiting the sick and the mitzvah of having guests in your home, when he talks about all those mitzvahs, Bein Adam lechaviro, between one person and another. So the Rambam says that the source of every one of those mitzvahs is v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, that you have to love your neighbor as yourself. The Torah commands me to love my neighbor as myself. The rabbis then defined what is the way we show that love by visiting the sick, burying the dead, taking care of the needy, and bringing guests into our home. Beautiful. But that's the Rambam in one section of his legal tome. But the Rambam in another section says that's what is the source of every mitzvah between one person and another, bein adam lechavero. The source is a commandment in the Torah that we have v'halachta bidrachav. You have to walk in God's ways. Just like God was merciful, you have to be merciful. Just like God is kind, you have to be kind. Just like God visited the sick, you have to visit the sick. And therefore, when you bring guests into the home, you are acting like God. You're fulfilling the commandment of halachta bidrachav, of walking in God's ways. So, of course, the $1 million question that has to be asked is that Why do I need two sources? And what's the difference between the sources for the commandment of doing mitzvos from one person to another? Why do I need both v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, loving my neighbor as myself, and v'halachta b'drachav, and walking in God's ways? And I understand that when I do a chesed, when I do a kindness, I'm fulfilling the mitzvah of v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. That's very understandable, because I'm treating you like I would want myself to be treated. But how am I fulfilling the mitzvah of the halachta b'drachav, of walking in God's ways? How is helping another person, how is that a fulfillment of that commandment? Walking in God's ways is being godly, being spiritual. How is helping other people a fulfillment of that mitzvah? So an amazing thing you have to consider, that when God created the world, He didn't create the world to fulfill a chisaron, a lack in our lives. We weren't here. It's not like we were here and then God said, these poor people, they don't got no place to go. So let me build them. I'll build them a mall. I'll build them a stadium. I'll build them, I'll build them a world. This way they can keep them busy on a Sunday. That's not what happened. We weren't there. There was nothing lacking. There was nothing lacking that God would then need to fulfill that. God had to first create the lack and then fill the lack. By creating us and creating our lives, He didn't fill a need. He gave us our lives. He created our life. When I show you kavod, when I show honor to another person, I am being godlike in the sense that I am giving you I'm strengthening your sense of existence, and I'm making you recognize your life. I'm making you feel more connected to your life, because I'm telling you, you're valuable. When I give you kavod, when I give you honor, the word kavod is from the same word as kaved, heavy. That means that I am showing that you are heavy. You're worth something. You have an erech, you have a value. And when I bring you into my home, more than any other commandment, because when I bring you into my home, I treat you like a member of my family. I give you a sense of value. You feel like you mean something. I walk you out of my house. I tell you how much I appreciated you to being there. You feel like $1 million, because you feel like a mensch, you feel like a person. And therefore, when I fulfill the mitzvah of hachnasas orchim, of having guests in my home, so what I am doing is that I am being like God, because just like God gave us our lives, so then we are giving life to another person. In every chesed I do, whether it's stucco, whether it's visiting the sick, whether it's taking care of the mourners, in every chesed I do, I'm giving you that sense of life. But in Hachnasas Orchem, it's even deeper. In Hachnasas Orchem, it's not only to take care of a need of yours, but it's to elevate you and to strengthen your sense and your connection to life. And in this mitzvah, we are similar to God, because just like God gave life to His creatures, we're giving life and value to another human being. Now I understand why Hachnasas Orchim, and only Hachnasas Orchim, is greater than greeting the divine presence. It doesn't say giving tzedakah is greater than greeting the divine presence. It doesn't say visiting the sick is greater than greeting the divine presence. It doesn't say burying the dead is greater. It says Hachnasas Orchim is greater than greeting the divine presence. Because the greeting, not only am I greeting, not only am I greeting them, because when you greet God, you're standing in the presence of God. But when I bring guests into my home, I'm actually being like God. I'm not just standing in his presence, which is what Avram was doing, sitting, being greeted by God, God coming to visit him. He was in the presence of God. But then when he went to bring in guests, he was actually being God-like. And that's one step above. That's why our rabbis say, Om Rav Yudah Om Rav, that greater is the bringing in guests into the home than seeing divine presence, because seeing the divine presence is merely just basking. It's being in the right place. It's being with God. But when you bring guests into the home, you're actually being like God. And what is that being like God? Being like God means you're giving life and you're giving honor and you're giving value to every single person. Ha'omer davar b'shem omro. When you say over something in the name of the person that said it, you're giving them life. You're giving them value in the eyes of other people. You learned something from a Ramban. The Ramban lived 1,500 years ago. And you say something over from the Ramban. You say something over from Nachmanides, from Maimonides, from Rashi. What's happening to Rashi when you say over the words that you heard from Rashi? Rashi's alive. Rashi. And what you've done is you've breathed life into Rashi. And you've taught people to value Rashi. Rashi, what he says to us means something. It's important to us. You've taken Rashi and you've given him back life. Our rabbis in the Talmud say that when you say something over in the name of a person that said it, their lips are moving in the grave. Those are the words our rabbis use. Now, I don't think that you're going to see their lips moving. I think what the rabbis are telling us is that they remain eternal and alive. But their eternality is coming because you breathe life into them. And how did you breathe life into them? Because you gave them Kavod. 47 ways of wisdom. 47 ways to change your life. Number 48 is make sure you give Kavod to people. Make sure you give Kavod, you give honor to people. Because when you give them honor, you're giving them life. If I could stand up on a rooftop and scream this out, I would be a happy person. Because it costs you nothing to give Kavod to another person. You know what it means to give Kavod to another person? It doesn't mean giving them an award at a dinner. That's not called giving Kavod to them, because you can disrespect them in such fundamental ways that's not called giving Kavod. It's a ceremony of Kavod. That's not giving Kavod. Giving Kavod is making a person feel and know they are valuable. You mean something. And we do that in ways that you can't even quantify. The message that you're sending to another person that they're valuable by looking them in the eyes when they're talking to you, by letting them finish a sentence, by just saying, how's it going? That Kavod, that's called real Kavod. And that is what number 48 has to be. Number 48 is, with all the self-improvement and with all the great stuff that's going on, and your brains are growing in incredible ways. But remember to give Kavod to other people, because that's godlike. That's when we know we pull it all together. When not just nice to other people, but that we give Kavod to things that deserve Kavod. God, Torah, people. When we are able to value things in the correct and proper kind of way, that's when life puts itself in the right direction. And that's when we can get the maximum, the most out of life that we can ever imagine. Okay. Those are my thoughts. And you know what? And I'll just say, I don't like getting mushy all the time, but I will tell you that every time I turn on the computer and I see all of your faces and even your names, those that are afraid to to show their faces at 8:00 at night. And I don't know why you should be, but I get it. But those, you don't want me to see you in your pajamas. I get that also. Yeah. But when I see your faces, and I can go through one by one, I see your faces and I say, that unbelievable. So beautiful. It's so great to see you. I'm so happy to see you. And I just want you to know that it means so much to me every time I see every one of you.
You too, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rabbi. When we see you too, it's the same.
Thank you, Rabbi.
So
you.
we're not done with Pirkei Avos, by the way. We're not done with Pirkei Avos. Like, don't think that this was the end of Pirkei Avos. We still have a couple of Mishnayos left, and those Mishnayos are powerful Mishnayos. So we have a lot of stuff to continue to unpack. There is one very interesting difference in the rest of the Mishnayos. This was a very long Mishnah, but every week was only 2 words. So we didn't really need a text. For the next 5 or 6 Mishnayos till the end of the book, each Mishnah is actually very long. So to deal with the text, we actually are going to need a text. So what I'm going to try to do next week is I'll come with a link that everybody will be able to link to, rather than put it up on the screen. I hate to do it, but I hate putting up stuff on the screen. So I'll come with a link so you can open it up for yourselves and then size it and put it where it belongs on your screen.